Welcome to another episode of Deeper Dive.
Let's go.
Woo! Excited about it this week. So we got Daniel, Ryan, and we got Rob in here this time, bringing Rob back to the table. Came back for more.
I did.
We didn't scare you off the first time.
I'm just glad that you actually wanted to have me back here in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. You didn't scare us too much.
No, not too bad.
Yeah.
Just a little.
Yeah. Man, well, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Last weekend, we celebrated Mother's Day, and Roland preached a wonderful message that, please, if you've not listened to it, go back and listen to it. I always love Roland's perspective, and I think his perspective is good for several reasons, but one of them is he has a wife. And his first 4 children were girls.
Yep.
So he just places so much value on really what we're going to talk about today, which is biblical femininity. And I'm just curious if maybe we'll start with you, Rob. What kind of stood out to you from Roland's message? Or I know you got a whole book of notes normally from a Sunday.
I'm just looking back through my notes here. Honestly, the thing that I see right in the middle of the page here was he talked about Jochebed and how she released Moses into God's hands. I don't know if that's a direct quote to Roland. Sorry if it's not what I wrote down. But you see that over and over again throughout Scripture. You see it here. You see it with, forgive me, the prophet. Hannah,
Yeah.
right? Hannah brings Samuel.
Sure.
And this promise that she brings back to God. I mean, you see it with men too, but there are so many key moments of women doing this. Mary with Jesus, right?
Sure.
She has to release him into this. And it's a concept I've heard talked about a lot. What I wrote down here is that, we have our desire is to protect our children, and it's well intended, and there should be a level of that. But we can't go too far and not allow them to step into the life that God's calling us to live, which is going to come with inherent risk and trials. And, that biblical women do a very good job at balancing that, of knowing they do have to protect their children, but having great discernment in when is it time to not let go, but give them back to God and allow them to become all that He's intended for them to become.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's so good because, I mean, first of all, Jochebed, that's not a name that we hear too often, but we're all familiar with Moses' mother who cast him into the Nile. And to know that she's talked about in more places in Scripture than just Exodus, which is what Roland talked about. But yeah, this idea of letting go of this good gift that the Lord gave you because you trust the Lord more than you trust your own ability. And I mean, I think that's a call for men and women, but it's so interesting that we see so many examples in this exact same framework of the Lord gives a woman this child. And there's no doubt, I mean, I don't know how you feel, when there's like a new infant born in our family, man, I love that infant, but I don't have that like immediate connection that Marissa gets to have.
Yeah, we were talking about this on Sunday. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so there's this immediate connection that they get, and then just a few days later, or a few months later, actually, for Jochebed's case, now she's casting him into the Nile in this little boat that she crafted, and that she just trusts God.
Ark.
Yeah. No, I mean it's unbelievable, for sure. Daniel, what'd you have?
Well, on Sundays I'm a runner, making sure this is taken care of and this is taken care of. But just as Roland was preaching, but even just in personal conversation with Roland, the high level and high value he puts on women, and it's just not just his opinion, but like from the Bible and in the conversation, the high value he puts on women and women in ministry. And I even for myself, like with Rachel, like Roland encourages her so much, and sends encouraging text messages, but then also like affirms her, and really lifts her up and everything. And so yeah, you're right. Like he is a perfect candidate to be kind of sharing some of these things because of the life that God has allowed him to live with so many women in his life and in his family and things like that. And so I'm just encouraged that as a church that we empower women, but also like look to like what does the Bible say about women, and also in a day and age in the culture that we're in now that there's this like weird shift of like what femininity looks like and who's allowed to experience it. And it's like, so let's get back to what the Bible has to say about it and stand strong on that word.
No, I love that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, not to get off too much into a rabbit trail here 2 minutes in, but just speaking to the cultural element, because I think it's really important. Especially now, seeing a shift, honestly, back towards biblical gender roles within the church, which I think is amazing. But also just, I guess, word of caution for a better word, is some things that I've seen, and you guys might be able to speak to this too, is this slight twisting as it's coming back of like the whole like trad wife trend. That it's this like Instagram filtered version of what true femininity is. But it doesn't speak to the core of what it is. So I think Roland got a lot of that on Sunday, and we'll probably get into a little more of it today. But diving deep into like, no, it's not just homemaking and baking sourdough and like having a put together kitchen and cleaning like that. Like, yes, those are outputs, but that's not at the core of what the role is and what the responsibility is.
Yeah, Marissa and I were just talking about this last night, that parenting especially is a lot more messy than people generally lead it out to be. We're reading a really good book right now. We're only a few chapters in, so I'll drop the name another time. I guess Roland quoted it. Habits of a Healthy Household is the name of the book. I've heard it reviewed a million times. I have a ton of people who've recommended it to us, but we started it. And, he says from the get-go, he's writing from a messy home as a guy who doesn't have it all figured out. So he said, if you're looking for the guru who has all the right answers and has a perfect home, you're looking to the wrong person. And I see that's what we tend towards, is like the in our minds, perfected version, which actually ends up being the twisted version of the good reality, because it's good. And recognizing in culture today, it's good. What it says literally here in Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. We were created with this unique identity that both identities, male and female, when they come together, they reflect together who God is, his character. That us as men, while we can all rally around the same things and we can celebrate biblical masculinity, we recognize that we're not a perfect reflection of who God is and his character, that we're missing another whole half, not just a piece, but the other half of the puzzle is missing, which is biblical femininity. And that I love at Mazevo, we can celebrate our differences. We don't try and conform everybody to this one type of thing, but we say, man, we're all individual members of the body, and that we all make up this body, and no member is more important than the other. And we know that we, male and female, are created in God's image. So that's our foundation. That's where we start. And we can celebrate our differences, which I think you said we see on Instagram now. There's this celebration of, no, wait, trad wife. I want to be a traditional wife. But then we boil it down to these concepts that look really good on an Instagram feed. They're superficial. They don't actually mean anything. So maybe that would be a good follow-up, is what are some ways that you guys see women operating in that role of biblical femininity that maybe isn't one of those, really oversimplified, this is what a woman does, keep a clean house and cook a good meal.
Well, I will say Rachel does keep a clean house and cooks a pretty good meal.
That lunch looked pretty good today.
Yeah, the lunch was really good today. I will say I cooked that one this morning. Okay. That one was me. It was her recipe though. She got the recipe. There you go. But I think when you look at what God has called like a man and woman again, this is the context of just in marriage. But there's roles. There's roles, and there's, again, they're not competing roles, but they work together and they complement one another, and they work with each other. And I just think for me, seeing it in a few different women, so in my mom, in Rachel, in Ashley, my sister, in Rachel's mom, so my mother, we call each other mother in love and father in love. So now my mother-in-law, but my mother in love, I
like that,
are just these women that when I think of the example that I'm looking at right now, it was when Moses' arms were being held up they were helping him. And so as a woman, I just see in all these ladies, not that they can't have their own identity, and not that they surrender themselves to just submit to somebody else and serve someone else, but that they, with all these ladies, with their husbands, that they have come alongside them and said, like, I am here and I support you, because God has called the father and the husband to be the leader of the family. That they have come alongside their husbands and supported them and been their rock. And I think if you asked every single one of those husbands, that they would say, I am who I am because, one, the Lord, the Lord has worked in my life, but because of my wife. And I'm not the man that I am today without my wife. And so the examples that I've seen of just these amazing ladies who have their own identity, don't get it wrong, but have viewed some of the biggest responsibilities in their life to be the best wife they can to their husband and the best mom they can to their children.
I love it.
And showing them the Lord and praying and all that. And so those are some examples that I've seen, and we could, there could be a whole podcast on each one of those ladies in my life to just talk and just speak highly of all of them.
That's so good, man. Yeah.
And I want to just expand on that. I know we touched on Proverbs 31 on Sunday. But speaking to the output, speaking to the responsibilities and the things that actually get done, I don't want to trivialize it and skip over, and not to trivialize taking care of the kids and taking care of the household, because those are obviously incredibly important things. Something I've thought a lot about is, that the eternal concept of sowing into your children, because it's, setting up that lineage, it's setting up the next generation. But to go to Proverbs 31 and some of the things that are in here that if you haven't read it, if you're not familiar with it, if you haven't read it recently, some of the things in here go so far beyond, I think, what even us at the table might immediately go to, which are important and foundational. But verse 16, she considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks. Verse 24, she makes linen garments and sells them and supplies the merchants with sashes. Verse 26, she speaks with wisdom and faithful instruction is on her tongue. So, the ones I didn't read is all the stuff that we immediately think about. Homemaking, taking care of the kids, making sure everyone's well fed, well clothed, that everything's repaired within the house. But there's also so much in here that speaks to these things that we don't. I think the trap that we can get in, if we don't return to the Word and study deeply, is there are all these things that we might think of as traditionally male-dominated roles. Something that's been really cool in our house in the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, is so many of these things that Crystal stepped into of I'm completely out of my depth with this. You're running circles around me in terms of managing our house, our schedule, making sure that there are, wise financial decisions being made, that we're doing it in partnership. But I think some of these things people try to co-opt into it's a male only thing or it's a male dominated thing. And there's tons of responsibility, freedom, leadership when you read through everything mentioned in this chapter about what a woman's role is. And again, I think a lot of people get hung up on the other things. They focus down in. It's no, it's more than that. And that should be even more freeing, that there is a lot of responsibility here. Anyways, I think I'm talking in circles a little bit.
No. I mean, I'm 100% tracking with you because, the Bible's really clear back in Proverbs, all the way back well before the time of Jesus, in a culture when women were not valued at all. Even in Jesus' day, there was not this... what I think the feminine movement tried to fight for was equal rights and opportunity for women. And I think the heart of that isn't wrong. We literally see it laid out here. Women are capable. The Bible's really clear in Proverbs 31 here. Women are capable of many of the same things that men are capable of. We have our few unique differences, but it's not that women can't do them. It's that we've been given these roles by God that we most fulfill. It's like, in the business world, they talk about putting the person in the right seat on the bus. You want everybody in the right seat on the bus, because when you're in the right seat on the bus, you operate within your giftings. And when you're forced to do another role, you may not operate within your giftings anymore. You may have to do it out of necessity. And I think we can all relate with that. There are things we have to do out of necessity that we're not necessarily gifted at. But the goal for our home is, how do we make sure that our wives feel celebrated, fulfilled in all that they do, but also that they're not feeling trapped into a box that maybe the world has put them in, or maybe culture has put them in, but that they're celebrating the freedom that they truly have as an individual piece of God's character.
Well, and it's freedom and structure.
Yes.
Too,
Yes.
right? Because, I mean, even in my own head, as we've been talking through these first few minutes, it's like, oh man, it's just a bunch of guys up here talking
Sure.
about what women should do.
Sure.
Which is, whatever. Take that for what it's worth.
It is what it is, right?
But like, you speak to the freedom, but back last year as we went through Exodus, I think something that you and Roland both came back to a lot, and that I've heard a lot of other commentaries on, is that their freedom from tyranny in Egypt was not unbridled freedom, right? It was a freedom to something.
Yes.
It was a freedom to worship God in a very specific, structured, some might even say restricted way, but so that like freedom from oppression doesn't mean freedom to do whatever you want. And again, I think that was a trap in some of the women empowerment, feminism movements was, no, it's just freedom for freedom's sake. It's like, no, there's so much good within the structure and so much freedom within the structure to say, now I don't have to worry about those things, because if I'm partnering with somebody else, if a man and woman are partnered together, the woman knows that she's going to be taken care of, loved, and protected. And the man knows that he has somebody to support him, to respect him, to ground him, to bring him back to earth, and make sure that he is coming home to provide and protect.
Yeah, no, I mean, the definition, so when God is explaining, or when Moses is explaining the woman that God created in Genesis chapter 2, that word he uses in the original Hebrew is ezer kenegdo. That those two words together, they translate help and then meet, M-E-E-T. So we have this like help and meeting coming together in this person. That it's the help meet that's brought to the man, because the man needs to be grounded, needs structure, needs someone in the home to bring. When we say a feminine touch, like I think we all think back to like the 50s and 60s movies of like, I'm gonna put this flower pot here. Like that's for sure part of it. Because I mean, I don't know about you guys, I'm not good at that, but
No,
I like it. I am there. Rachel has done a lot, but I will say when she moved in, when we got married, she was like, "You've done a pretty good job." I mean, it definitely needs my touch, but you've done a pretty good job. So
I've heard it said once. Somebody said if men didn't get married and were left to their own devices, any single man's apartment you walked into would just have like a mattress on the floor and a lamp in the corner. That's it. I saw one picture of a guy who loved to game, and he just had a TV on the floor and a lawn chair. And that was it. And now he was like,
and he was all set. He was set for his life.
Good. That's terrible.
Man, that's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much that we can say about, the practical biblical explanation of what biblical womanhood is, and it just comes with so much more depth than that endless Instagram feed. I think we get caught up talking about we want all the positive things that come with that role. Like for us, we want all the positive things that come with biblical masculinity. We want to be big, strong dudes with an awesome beard, like these two gentlemen. And
we're coming along nicely. It's not.
I take the pride in the hair.
Okay,
mine's in the hair,
the beard, the hair, the neither, and we want all the good things that come with. Man, being a man means I'm powerful and I have authority. And then you see how quickly the world twists those things, and the things that you want end up being kind of the crux that make it so difficult. So for women, it's like, what does a woman want? Well, a woman wants to be unique. They don't want to be just a helper to a man. They have their own unique identity, like you said before, Daniel, that I think a lot of women today say, well, I don't want to get married because I don't want to put myself under somebody else. They're either looking for an equal partner where they have just as much say, or in most cases, they want more say. And I think in a healthy marriage, you see those two things kind of held in limbo. Marissa and I talk about it all the time. It's like, man, she's not any less than me. She's not under me, but the final authority is mine, not because I'm the authoritative one. The final authority is mine because I take the responsibility. So the responsibility is the piece that I want to bear that, because I want to be at the end of the day responsible for whatever happens. But within that safety, now, like you said, with Crystal doing your financial stuff, Marissa does, I'll say, all of our finances. Like, she literally is looking at the budget all the time. She's like making up a new draft budget and bringing it to me and saying like, what do you think about this? What should I change? And I'm like, sweetheart, you got the budget locked.
That's all you.
Yeah, you got that. That's all on you, because, I'm, while I can be the financial guy, like Marissa's the one who sees what the money's being used for and sees the value it brings to our family. And for me to, in a vacuum, just say, this is our cap on food for the month, then that changes everything that Marissa's going to then make that month. So there are all of these deeper things than, I think, like you said, what's just celebrating the feed.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I keep thinking of this saying that was parroted around our house a lot growing up, that was not said with the intent that I'm about to take it for now. And it's common, so I'm sure other people have heard it, but the whole, the man's the head of the house, but the woman's the neck, and she can move the head any way she wants. Again, take that on face value, and that's a very twisted, unhealthy view of what the situation could be. But as we've been talking through this, again, it's been in the back of my head this whole time. The man is still the head, right? The head has to decide which way it's going to point and which way it's going to decide to take everything. But like, if you've ever, slept the wrong way, looked the wrong way for too long, you get that twinge in your neck. And it's like, this is not saying that women are nagging.
There.
That's not where I'm trying to take it.
I wasn't even thinking that.
But like the neck, I think you could take it and morph it to be something really beautiful, which is the man's the head and the neck's there to like, hey, where are we going? Like that doesn't feel good. That doesn't feel right. We need to be over this way. And you need the tension between the two.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to rein me in if we're talking too much.
No, we're great.
I heard somebody talk about once how, women want the same exact things that men are after. Power, money, authority, within business, within whatever it is. But like, again, that's the beauty of the roles, is if both are chasing that, who's there to rein it in? Who's there to go, no, there's other implications we have to consider. And especially you get into it where kids aren't being had. So then you're not thinking about legacy. You're not having an eternal mindset of how is this going to affect generations to come. And as men, I'll speak for all three of us, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like, we definitely have less of a propensity to be thinking about those things and need that nurturing character of the woman to go, hold on, that's not, that might be a little too abrasive. That might be a little too aggressive. We need to rein that in a little bit.
Yeah. It's so fun seeing biblical femininity like come to life for me, especially in Rach. And it's just a few examples, like when we hang out with Ash and Charles and we get to be around Sophie, just the way that she cares for her. And I want to grab her and I toss her up in the air and I do that 5 times and I give her a big kiss on the cheek. Yeah, throw her, and then I'm like, all right, Rach, here you go. The time where like Sophie just needs to like relax and cuddle and read a book and stuff like that. Again, I'll read her a book. It can't be longer than 15 pages though, because I'm trying to read my other stuff. That's all I got in me. But there's just this, you see God's design when you see women around kids like that. You just see, you're like, again, not to say that I can't comfort Soph, but when she wants comforting, like when she's around Rach and I, she goes to Rach and she's like, I just want a hug from you. And so you see it too. So not only do you just see like when God brings together a couple for marriage, that part of the role is a helper and a nurturer on the woman's side. It's like, it's because it's unique and it's special, and it's fun to watch God's design in action. And Rach and I then leave that situation where like, did you get to do what you love to do? And it's like, that's what God created us for. And so when you step into the things that God created you for, I think in my experience, I feel more fulfilled than trying to do my own thing or trying to convince myself of like, I know what's best for me and I'm going to do those things because I want them. Yeah. And I've seen other people experience them, and I want that. I want that for myself. And if I'm not walking in how God's designed me and created me, then I feel very unfulfilled.
Yeah.
And so let's walk in what He's created us for, and you might find yourself feeling the most fulfilled.
Yeah. No, I mean, you talk about
shocker.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, you walk in God's design, and there's fulfillment. There's fulfillment, and then Rob, you had mentioned another word, legacy. So it's like we want fulfillment, and we want legacy. And the beauty in, we'll say, God's economy, for the overused phrase, is that we get fulfillment when we walk in the ways that the Lord's called us to, when we walk in righteousness. And the legacy that we leave behind, the best legacy we can leave, is the name of Jesus. Mm-hmm. So it's like if our goal as individuals, so we're to love God and enjoy Him forever, and then the Great Commission, we're told to go out and make disciples. So when we're talking about going out and making disciples, you don't have to go very far to end up in your home or in your family's home where there are children there. And the spiritual legacy that we leave behind is with our physical and our spiritual children. And both man and woman play a different, distinct role in the discipling of those people. And I think about all the time with our own kids. I mean, Rob, you're talking about how we need somebody to ground us. I am like, my brain, when I wake up in the morning, is outside of the home. My work is outside of the home. So that's where my brain is there. All my mental capacity is thinking about my day today. And what do I have to do today? And who do I have to talk to? And what do I have to have prepared? And then all of a sudden, the boys wake up and they're interrupting my planning time to go and do my job. And it's like, Marissa and I have been talking, and it's like, no, what does it look like to create healthy habits where when we wake up, like, we're just home together. And then when you're done with work, like, be done with work. Just come home and be present. And that's such a common reminder that I need. And in operating in the things that fulfill us. So in Marissa telling me that, I was able to see, man, I'm missing out on a huge piece of fulfillment just left on the table because I'm not operating totally within God's design. And the beauty is Marissa knows me better than anybody else in this world. There's not one person who knows me better than her. And she can always bring me back and reground me and bring me back to the things that are really important and of eternal value.
Yeah.
Today is going to come and go, but the eternity that we have with our children, pray the Lord that He would answer that prayer, is that we get to be with them every single day and be with them forever and invest in their lives and do this eternal work. Or with people who the Lord brings into your life to disciple as a couple, that those people, like, you're going to see them in eternity. And this is eternal work that you're doing right now. And yeah, I mean, I am so thankful that I have Marissa to constantly rein me back in.
Yeah. Let me also say one more thing about the fulfillment, and I'd love the word legacy is just amazing.
Yeah.
Just a caveat to that fulfillment, not like the lie that of what the world can fulfill you with. So there are fleshly desires. I just want to make sure that I was pretty clear with that. There are fleshly desires that we think can fulfill us.
Sure.
But ultimately, what God has for us are the most and the ultimate fulfilling things.
Yep.
Not just a desire that I have that if I get it, I'll feel fulfilled, because that's the lie the world gives and the lie that the enemy has. And that's the enemy's scheme always, is just lying and deceiving. But there's going to be things that we can convince ourselves outside of God's word that's like, oh, that will fulfill me, and it never will. So there's that. But then the legacy piece is just beautiful. It's just beautiful. And, it's cool seeing it in you guys, and it's cool seeing it in other families at the church, and even, my family, and not even starting with my parents, but even above them and their parents and their parents. And it's just like, when you prioritize wanting God and the legacy of Jesus in your family and just seeing it trickle down, it's you're like, man, I don't even know what job, like the last job my grandpa had. Like, I can't remember. I think he was a basketball coach. But what I can remember is that he loved his family, and he led his family, and he led them to the Lord. And it's like, I know that on both sides, and in both parents and aunts and uncles. And again, the things that we think are the most important are like, man, like my job and like how much I'm going to make, because I want to make sure I can provide. It's like, yes, don't leave the idea of what providing for your family looks like. But if you are sacrificing providing them Jesus for the sake of comfort or anything else,
Sure.
then we're putting a Band-Aid on what the real problem is. And it's like, my family needs Jesus, and we need Jesus every day. And so I think that there's a thing that we get to come together on as male and female, as husband and wife, and parents to our kids. It's like, hey, our role is to continue to pass this down.
Yeah.
And it starts in the home too.
Yeah.
And so for Rach and I, our home is the college students on Davidson's campus. Like that's our
100%.
spiritual
That's your
home.
legacy.
And it's our legacy right now. And it's beautiful. We just got to baptize 2 guys this past Sunday, and it was just, it's a beautiful thing. So fulfillment and legacy are just 2 words that are standing out to me.
Yeah, well, I think on the fulfillment point, you kind of brought it all full circle, talking about the legacy piece as well, is us as men in a job and things outside of the home and these more, manly things. Those can't be our fulfillment.
Sure.
Right? That can't be where we find our identity. And talking about biblical femininity, the same goes there.
Yeah.
I can imagine the struggle, because I know how all-encompassing motherhood can be. I see it secondhand.
Sure.
But it's all the time, right? You can't turn it off, and it can consume you.
Yeah.
Just in the same way that a job can. But for a woman with children or with spiritual children, like, their identity is not in motherhood. Their identity is not in being a wife, just like our identity is not in being a husband. Our identity is not being a father. Our identity is not in the job that we do, like you mentioned, right? Like, our identity goes much more core to that, which is being like Jesus, right? Being made new in his image, reflecting the nature of the Father. And now we get opportunities to do that through all of those things. But for men or women, the trap that I think is really easy to fall into, I have to catch myself a lot too, is like, to the job point, is like, no, this is just a job. This is not the end all be all. Like, there are other things and far more important things just in the world in front of me to focus on. Before that.
Yeah.
And then there's, the actual just pursuit of God, pursuit of Jesus, and being shaped by him. That's core to all of that, no matter what the situation's in. Which I think is, a way to talk through. There's plenty of situations where you have husband and wife, father and mother working full time,
Sure.
or stay-at-home dads. Like, I don't think any of this disallows for any of that.
Sure.
Because, again, we're talking about our identity is not in the things that we do. Yes, we're, maybe hardwired one way or the other a little bit more than the other person, but our identity isn't found in the things we do at the end of the day.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. And I think the last thing I want to wrap up with is just, we talked a lot about married couples and about mothers, but this is true for single men and women too. That you single women who are waiting for a husband and continuing to wait faithfully, know that these things are just as true about you too. That this is not about men and women are made to go together. There's no denying that. Men and women are made to be married and to join in this union of marriage and then to procreate. But we also recognize that there are men and women who are called to lives of celibacy where they never do marry, and know that that does not impact your value before the Lord. You are just as valuable to him as a single individual, and being married doesn't make you any more or less valuable in society or to the Lord especially. You are valuable as an individual, and the Lord will bring that husband in his timing, whether that's here or whether that's the husband who we're all waiting on, in the Father and sending Jesus to come back for his bride.
Yeah.
But I think for women who are single now, know that you're gonna find yourself doing more of these things that Rob had mentioned in the Proverbs 31 woman, providing for yourself, and that you are still working within the giftings that the Lord has provided you, the same way that a mother is. But there is just no denying, and that's what we're all built for. We're built for union. We're built for parenthood, and man, the Lord's just good.
And to even take it a step further, we're also all built for submission to the Father, right? And being wedded to Jesus, as you mentioned. So I think that's where it can ground anybody married, single, kids, no kids, man, woman, what have you, is at the end of the day, we all submit to the Lord as the body of Christ. We are the bride for the bridegroom, right? Yeah. So even within a marriage context, yes, we could get into a whole other, however many episodes about marriage roles and submission of the wife submitting to the husband. And then it's the husband submitting to Jesus, and it's both of them submitting to Jesus. So then it's the single woman submitting to Jesus, the single man submitting to Jesus in a similar construct of a relationship of one at the head, one in help and support of the other.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And man, I wish we could just keep on going. But I think that's where we're going to have to wrap it up for this week, unfortunately. But man, I hope that the women of our church, or any women this ends up in front of, that you feel celebrated this Mother's Day and recognize your unique identity apart from any man before the Lord, and that we're all created in his image as these two unique and distinct parts. But man, excited for next week. We're going to be back in Romans chapter 8. Romans 8, chapter 1. Go read it right now. Yeah. And it should get you amped up for next Sunday.
It really should. It really should.